Good afternoon. My name is Lewis Powell, and I'm very glad to come before you today on behalf of the Cook County Bar Association. We're going to cover several issues. This is the first program of our series, and I think we're going to have about 7 shows contingent upon the station's approval. Our telephone number is 312-738-1060, 312-738-1060. I encourage you to give us a call if you want to talk about any particular subject as it relates to the law, community service, so forth and so on. I'll be more than happy to talk with you about it. Just a little bit about the Cook County Bar Association. Cook County Bar Association was formed in 1914 in Chicago, Illinois. The primary purpose of the bar is for political improvement, social improvement, and community improvement. We are an organization comprised of primarily African American attorneys. However, we have members that are not African Americans, and anyone is welcome to join. A lot of things are going on in our community. We've reached almost like a boiling point in terms of just stuff happening in terms of violence. The young lady that was killed the other day, that was stabbed several times, I can't recall her name, but I'm sure our viewers know about it. I mean, it's beyond ridiculous. Our community is spinning out of control, and we really have to take some measures in terms of self-control. I'm making reference to the young lady that was stabbed a couple of days ago. The young lady was an honor student. The young lady was a track star. As a matter of fact, she was scheduled to go downstate in track, which is quite an honor. For those of you who ran track, going downstate is like the height of a high school track person's career. And the young lady was scheduled to be in 3 relays. And it is significant that she was a freshman running varsity. That's significant. A cheerleader, an honor student. But what is more significant than anything is the fact that this was a young lady doing the right thing. Now, of course, we don't know all the circumstances of the fight. We just know what was reported in the media. Apparently, there were several people involved. I believe that the media said that a young man might have been a source of the fight. I'm not quite sure of the facts of that. I believe that there was some type of going back and forth on Facebook between the young ladies. I believe we have a caller. Caller, are you there?
Good evening, sir. How you doing?
Pretty good, pretty good.
I have a question. When we talk about police brutality, and you look in terms of like the $400 million that have been paid out since about, no, it may be much more close to $500 million been paid out since 2004, and we look at the policemen that's involved, it seems to be the same ones all the time, and they go before certain judges, and some of these judges and even some of these defense attorneys should have a clue when the same police doing the same thing all the time, why it's not being dealt with or raising some type of eyebrows or something about, I see a pattern here.
Okay, I'm going to try to answer your question, to a certain extent that I can. Certainly there are repeat offenders. We know that. We do know there's certain police officers who have multiple complaints have been filed against them by private citizens. Now, in terms of those individual police officers that have engaged in activity that's resulted in a lawsuit, I'm not quite sure how many repeat offenders that we have in that category. But, you raise an interesting question. We have to, give credit where credit is due. The mayor is at least making an effort to do a better job to have a more transparent review board, more procedures in place. I think the cameras that the police officers are being required to wear, I think that's a step in the right direction. Those of you in the audience, we know that police brutality is something that just not happened. Our community has been dealing with that for a long period of time. At least now it's coming into the forefront in terms of citizens saying that they've had enough had enough in terms of being brutalized by police officers. Now let me say this: we're not talking about the all of the police officers. We're not talking about a majority of police officers. We're talking about a minority of police officers that have given this police department a bad name. Without the police department, it'll be chaos. We do need law and order. However, law and order does not mean that you can treat citizens any way that you can, any way that you want to. So, Carl, I hope I answered your question. In terms of those police officers that are repeat offenders that are causing the city's lawsuit, various lawsuits, certainly, they should be dealt with accordingly. I hope I answered your question. Moving on is, things are in terms of, we mentioned our community, in terms of being a boiling point, in terms of violence. And we really, really have to take control of ourselves, because certain things we can do. Certain things as an adult, in terms of being a good example to our young people, because it all starts at home. Judge Eugene Pincham, a great judge, a great attorney, and an even greater activist, had a favorite saying that you cannot be what you can't see. If our young people have more examples of positive activity by adults, that's a step in the right direction. Now again, going by what I've heard in the media, which is not always accurate, but there are media reports that in terms of the incident we talk about with the young lady that got stabbed several days ago, the media reports are that the knife was actually given to the young lady that did the stabbing by her mother. Now, if that is true, that is just ridiculous. Now, we need to go back, to the old days, and the old days are the old days. We have to deal with what we have now. But when I say go back to the old days, in terms of self-discipline by our community, self-discipline where young people respect older people. We're living in a time where there's just a total lack of respect for everybody. Lack of respect in terms of authority, lack of respect in terms of people in the community, lack of respect of elder people in the community. These young people that have no respect. Now, I'm not talking about all young people. Again, I'm talking about a minority. Because let's not say we got a lot of good young people doing the right thing. Again, I encourage you to call in. The number is 312-738-1060. 312-738-1060. Moving on. In terms of our state, we have a situation where a budget has not been approved. We have a situation where a lot of social services are suffering because of a lack of budget, a lack of being paid. Ladies and gentlemen, I submit to you, African Americans as well as our other minorities, when things are bad, they're really bad for us. When everybody else catches a cold, we catch pneumonia. The situation in terms of social services is really hitting hard on the minority communities. You have a number of organizations that are very dependent upon state and federal funding, as well as city. With the state funding being where it is in terms of not being consistent in terms of who's getting paid, for social services, has really put our community in a bind. Mental health services. Ladies and gentlemen, a lot of our folks have mental problems, and they need some form of treatment. You can't incarcerate everyone that has a mental problem. You can't institutionalize people. That's a better way to put it. Institutionalize, put them in an institution. Some people need consistent training. Some people need consistent counseling, which is a better way to put it. The way the situation is now, with the social services organizations really having a problem in terms of staying afloat, delivering key services to our community, has put our community at risk. things in terms of, you see the examples of the individuals in terms of the latest, police shootings, in terms of the young man that went to Northern Illinois University. I went to Northern Illinois University, a proud graduate of Northern Illinois University. The young man that was shot, and at the same situation, his father's neighbor was gunned down unnecessarily. At least, Alderman Burke, and I believe Alderman Willie Cochran. Willie Cochran is a former police officer, and also Alderman Burke is a former police officer. It's my understanding they have come up with a resolution, or at least a proposed ordinance, to move in the direction of establishing a special task force of police officers to deal with people that have apparent mental problems. I think that's a step in the right direction. I think what we're seeing with a lot of these killings, that is a lack of restraint or lack of patience on the police officers that are involved in the situation. Sometimes it may be a matter of trying to wait the situation out, trying to talk the person out of the situation to calm them down. Now, we know our police officers are well trained. However, these latest incidents do give us reason to pause, do give us reason to concern, to think that perhaps there may be a need of a special unit to deal with people who appear to have mental problems. Again, our phone number is 312-738-1060. Again, a little bit more about the Cook County Bar. The Cook County Bar tries hard as it can to be relevant to our community. Cook County Bar has a history of being there for when the community needs it. Case in point, when we had the race riots, I believe in 1919, the Cook County Bar was involved in terms of representing citizens for free, African American citizens for free, that were arrested as a result of the riots. Now, I may have the year wrong, but those in the audience, I believe you know what I'm talking about. It happened approximately 1919 in the city of Chicago, when a young black man, by mistake, swam past the color line and was stoned and drowned, which led to rioting. Numerous African Americans were killed. Also, numerous white citizens were killed in terms of the rioting and the fighting that was going in place behind the different race groups. Again, our number is 312-738-1060. 312-738-1060. In terms of our political atmosphere, we have a political atmosphere at this particular time that people are really waiting to see what's going to happen. Nationwide, we have a presidential election. On the Republican side, we have an individual, to me, that is quite troubling. We won't attack him, but let's just say he's quite troubling in terms of what he's talking about. And what he's talking about is really divisiveness. It doesn't matter whether you're Republican or a Democrat. At least have the idea of fundamental fairness in terms of dealing with the different ethnic groups that make up this great nation of ours. I implore you, I ask you to really pay attention to politically, what's happening in our nation. We have to really pay attention to what we're doing. We want to, first of all, we all need to vote. Those of you all that know your history, if you don't know your history, that's your fault. But those of you that know your history, you know that a lot of bloodshed was paid for the right to vote. Those of you that know your history, especially your civil rights history, we know in the 50s going into the 60s, in terms of the price that were paid by African Americans and other folks, Hispanics as well, and other individuals, in terms of demonstrating and fighting for the right to vote. We know the movies like movements like the Selma movement, so forth and so on. We saw individuals beat because they wanted to participate in the voting process. It's a shame. No one is stopping us from voting but us. I believe we have a caller. Caller, are you there?
Hello.
Hello.
Hi. So I've been listening to you, and my understanding is that Illinois has some of the most harsh gun laws in the country, but it doesn't seem to have stemmed much of the violence. So I just kind of wanted to know, from a legal perspective or legislatively, what do you think we're not getting right in terms of what needs to happen with the laws in this country in terms of actually stemming some of this violence?
Okay, I'll try
More
to
restorative
address that.
justice, as an example.
I'm sorry, go right ahead.
I said, do we need more restorative justice, as an example, less harsh gun laws, in your professional opinion? What would you say we need to do differently?
Okay, and this is my opinion, not the Cook County Bar's opinion. First of all, restorative justice is a good thing. Restorative justice is my understanding that you just can't throw the book against everyone. Some people, unfortunately, do need to be arrested. Some people, unfortunately, need to go to jail. Some people, unfortunately, need to be in jail for a long time. However, that's not everybody. That's not for all offenders. Restorative justice, I understand it, is giving the opportunity to the person to be put in contact with the different social service organizations to perhaps make a better way in terms of what they're doing. Obviously, there are too many guns on the street, and that's a whole entire new show. But there are obviously too many guns on the street in terms of getting into the community. It's too easy for the wrong folks to get a hold of our arms. In terms of legislation, I think we have to have, it's just other people advocating, tougher penalties for individuals that commit a crime with a weapon. We have to be more stringent in terms of what we're doing, and that falls on everyone involved in the process. Again, case by case basis. However, it makes no sense, for folks to be arrested for armed robbery with a gun and then not being incarcerated, so forth and so on. We all know we just can't make a blanket accusation that folks are not doing the right thing in terms of the state's attorney's office, our judges, so forth and so on. Because again, all cases are different and have to be evaluated on their own merits of that particular case. But in answering your question, it is obvious to everyone that the gun laws have to be stronger. Those individuals that are committing armed robberies, those individuals that are committing offenses with armed weapon, they need to be dealt with in a quick and efficient manner. The way things are going in terms of our society, for some reason we're having a rise in shootings on the expressway, which to me makes absolutely no sense. And where it's coming from, I don't know. I don't know where it's coming from. Individuals having confrontations on the expressway in terms of being cut off by somebody else, or individuals that are being chased by someone, they're being tracked by someone, and they catch them on the expressway. But it just seems as a coincidence that in the last several weeks, we've had several shootings and a couple of fatalities, I believe, on our expressways. I hope I answered your questions. If I don't, you can call us back. Phone number is 312-738-1060. 312-738-1060. Again, the Cook County Bar Association is a collection of lawyers, but it makes it no good. It makes no sense if we are not relevant to our community. Our community is who we serve in terms of public service, and quite frankly, our community, for the most part, is where we make our living. We encourage you, I'm talking to you in terms of the audience, we encourage you to use African American attorneys. The phone number to the Cook County Bar Association is 312-630-1157. I just want to thank you for giving me the time to come before you. We will have at least 6 shows, and contingent on management's approval, we may have more than 6 shows. We'll be coming in on 6 o'clock, every Wednesday at 5 o'clock, and we hope to have more callers. God bless you, and God keep you.